So, perfect. Then let's start with the session, Building a Remarkable Onboarding Experience for New Employees using Office 365 Tools. Before I start with the contents of the session, let me first introduce myself. So I'm Karina. You can find me on the different social media platforms if you still have any questions after the session. I'm working as an IT consultant with focus on modern workplace design, and now it's already more than 8 years that I'm working in the consultancy area. And yeah, I've started with SharePoint on premises in the past, and moved to more interesting and cool topics in the cloud. So everything what's around modern workplace collaboration, and in the last months and years also with focus on Power Platform, PowerAutomate. I'm working at MSG Services in Germany. It's a consulting company. And when I'm not working, I'm also organizing a couple of community events. Some of them I'm organizing alone, some of them together with other people from the community. So yeah, I like to do this to bring people together, and yeah, most of the community events are in German, but some of them are also in English. Yeah, so I have also started a blog last year, so you can find it on my website if you're interested in. Okay, so now let's switch to today's topics. So George Clooney, probably everyone already knows him. He joins a new company. It's called We. And my goal is to onboard and integrate him in a company as fast as possible, give him orientation, and assign him different tasks. So in the first part of the session, I will talk a little bit about the onboarding process and the importance in a company of this process. And in the second part of the session, I will show a demo with Microsoft 365 out-of-the-box tools with a possible implementation of the onboarding process. So yeah, there are many implementations, and every company has a different onboarding process. So of course, you always have to adapt this process to the needs in your company. Okay, so a short definition of the onboarding. So the most important thing you have to remember is that the onboarding is the systematic introduction of a new colleague to his area of work in a company. And now, before we talk about onboarding, let's first see why is the onboarding process in a company so important. So first of all, when we start when people start joining a company, there are repeating tasks. So the tasks will be repeated for every new employee. Yeah, everyone needs to get some hardware, needs to get an introduction, some training. So the tasks are repeating every time. Then another challenge is also that new employees are joining a new environment. So everything is new for them. The people, the location, the tools, so everything. And sometimes it's underestimated because you say, okay, he will find his way in the company. And yeah, also in time of COVID, sometimes it's not so easy to introduce new employees good in a company. Then you also have various processes in a company. Every company has different processes, different ways of implementing processes, and it's important to give them an overview. And you also have new tools. So yeah, most of us are working with Microsoft 365 and the whole product palette in M365, but not every company is working with these tools. There are also tools from IBM, from Google, and or older versions of SharePoint or Skype, doesn't matter. But there will be always new tools for the new employees. Okay, so now let's take a look. Why is onboarding so important? So I don't want to focus in the session on the onboarding process from the theory, but before I show you a demo, I want to convince you that onboarding is very important for a company. So let's see why. First of all, it's the productivity. As faster an employee is trained and integrated in a company, as faster he will be able to work productive. So it's in your interest to make this process getting faster. Another thing is motivation, because if you show your new employees that that you provide them all the information and everything they need, they will feel that they are appreciated from the company, by the company. Sorry. And another thing is also you can learn from mistakes of others. So if you make some mistakes in the onboarding process, at some point, you can learn from them and make them in the future better. So if you have a dedicated onboarding process, probably mistakes from the past will not happen anymore. Another thing is also you have a specialist bottleneck, because everyone knows that it's difficult to get new and good people. So it costs also time and money, a lot of interviews. So if you get new good people, you want them to stay at the company. Then you have the fluctuation. So you don't want your employees to leave the company because you need to replace them with other employees. Probably sometimes a certain kind of fluctuation is okay because you have some fresh wind in the company if some people go and others come, but it should not be so high. So that's why it's in your interest to contribute to the employer branding, and onboarding contributes to it. Because imagine you're starting to work at a new company, for example, the Me company, our company from in this session, and this company has a very, very good onboarding process. So if you stay after that with your friends and drink beer and talk about your company and about onboarding, you will talk about it, and say, okay, that's a good process. And in this way, it's just employer branding, and probably you will also convince other people to apply for a job in the company you're working for. So that's why the onboarding process is so important. Maybe at some point it's not measurable, the result of the good onboarding. It's not so good measurable in numbers, but it's very important. Okay, now let's see what means the onboarding for a company. We have different integration aspects for new employees. First of all, we have the technical aspects. So we need to provide the new employees technical equipment. It's a prerequisite. It doesn't matter what type of employee you have. Also, if you have a field engineer, he needs a mobile device or something like this. Then you have also the social inclusion, which is also very important. And you can say that a new employee is not new anymore. So a new employee is integrated in a company when his colleagues don't call him the new one. I think that's the easiest way to remember how you can define social inclusion. Then you have the professional integration. So it's very important to give your new employees the opportunity to build up their competence, to learn new things at the beginning about the company, about their area of work. And at the end, you also have the cultural aspect, because every company has values, and it's important also to give them, to let them live out the values. So as sooner as you give them information about your company, about the way you are and you're working, as sooner they will understand your company culture. Yeah, so before we start with the demo, I just want to talk a little bit about onboarding phases because it's also important for the process when you implement the onboarding process. So you have 4 phases. The first phase in the onboarding phase is before the first working day. Then you have the first working day, the first weeks depending on the company. There can be 2 weeks or 10 weeks, depending on the size of the company. And then you have the integration phase that takes a little bit longer. And in the first working day, before the first working day, you have tasks like sending different information, documents, sending the address of the company, information about the welcome day. You already define from the organizational part an introduction plan. You order hardware and stuff like this. Then on the first working day, you will hand over your new employees a welcome package. Maybe you also have a welcome day. You will go out for lunch with them if it's possible. Today it's not so easy to do this. You can just present the new colleague to his team and stuff like this, typical for the first day. Then you have the first weeks where the new employee gets different introduction. He will also get information about the legal topics, different trainings regarding his area of work and stuff like this. And so in the first weeks, you need to provide him the most important information he needs to know. And then in the integration phase, you have enough time to give him further introductory events, to invite him also to attend team building activities, different networking types, professional networking, and communities and stuff like this. So these are the 4 phases that are important for the implementation. And now let's just take a look what options you have when you want to build the onboarding process in Microsoft 365. So in M365, you have many tools. So I've added here in the slide just a couple of tools that are important and relevant for the employee onboarding process. So, of course, you need Outlook to send out information, emails. You need PowerAutomate to automate as much as you can, because you don't want to do manually stuff like sending out invitation to a training or just sending some welcome messages and notifications. You can automate all these things. Then you have Microsoft Teams. So it's everyone is working today in Microsoft Teams, and that's why you can also use Teams for your new employees. What I forgot here on the slide is also Yammer. So if you have Yammer communities in your company, of course, it's also important to integrate the Yammer communities. Then you also have SharePoint. You can build up an onboarding portal for the pre-onboarding, for the onboarding, the administrative part, and so different things. You can store there your documents. You can have lists. You can use forms to create employee surveys, or maybe also to make some tests. For example, a typical, IT security questionnaire, quiz with a couple of questions. So you can automate all these things, and you can also use Power Apps to implement your own app for the onboarding process. Okay, so now let me just show you what I want to show you. So the process I want to show you is built up from 2 different perspectives. I see there is also a typo there. So the first perspective is the onboarding management. It's the part where the administrative work takes place. So before the employee starts, you need to provide hardware, you need to provide I don't know, licenses, and the HR department needs to fill out some forms. So there are different involved parties in the onboarding management. So it's only from the administrative part. And then we have the other side, the employee onboarding portal or the employee onboarding. You can build a portal or you can do this only in Teams. Depends on what is your purpose. The idea is that the employee onboarding is the entry point for the new employee. The new employee needs information before he starts at the company, and he needs information in his on the first working day, the first weeks, and in the integration phase. And you also need tasks too, because also in the administrative part, you will have tasks, and you also have tasks for the new employee. Okay, so I've talked about the onboarding phases before. Let me just wrap up the onboarding phases. So we have the 4 phases, and if you take a look on the arrows, so we have the onboarding management, which starts before the first working day and ends until after the employee is integrated. And then you have the employee onboarding, which is normally split in 2 parts. The pre-onboarding, where you need to provide the new employees information like the address of the company, or maybe also some welcome videos from the CIO for the new employees. Or also an area where they can upload a picture and a short presentation about themselves and stuff like this. And after the pre-onboarding, you have the employee onboarding after the employee starts, because at the moment when he starts in the company, he will have some tasks, he will need to do a lot of organizational stuff. So today, I don't want to focus on the pre-onboarding, because the pre-onboarding, it's most of the time very special, and our focus today is the onboarding management from the administrative side, and the employee onboarding for the new employee. Okay, and before I go in M365, let me show you first my idea of the onboarding process. So the onboarding process starts on the management side. Before the employee starts, the new employee will start a new job in the company, and the first thing what happens is you need to create a user in Active Directory. We can do this with PowerAutomate. I will show you also that it's super easy to do it. Of course, not every company will do the user creation in PowerAutomate, because you can create users, but you don't have so many options in PowerAutomate, and it's also important to remember. Maybe the use case fits for smaller companies, but for bigger ones, you need to see if it fits. After the user is created, you have an account is created, and then notifications will be sent to the responsible entities, HR, IT, with task assignments, and maybe you also need some approvals after the employee starts. Someone needs to approve, maybe the manager needs to approve that a new employee starts. And after the onboarding management is ended, the employee onboarding process starts automatically, because we have a new user. We know that the user was created. The employee starts at the 1st of April, and then we can start an employee onboarding process. We can send the account information that for the user that was created to the new employee. And then we can do different actions, like inviting the employee in different teams, inviting them to a Yammer community, sending them welcome emails, or sending them private chat messages, and also creating tasks for having the relevant tasks for the new employees. Okay, so now let's take a look on the demo. So I will start with the onboarding management, so the administrative part of the employee onboarding. And what I've done here is I've just created a SharePoint portal, and this SharePoint portal contains some quick links and contains a planner that is integrated here in the SharePoint page. If you say, okay, I don't need a SharePoint portal to manage my onboarding, of course, you don't need to use it. You can trigger the onboarding tasks and all the onboarding actions with a workflow also if you just use a list. So I have opened here also Microsoft Teams, and I have here my team onboarding management. So the SharePoint site onboarding management is associated to this team. So here in this team, there are automatically posts that are sent out when a new employee joins the company. And there is also here the portal. I have integrated here the portal, so you don't need to move from Teams if you want to just do all the administrative stuff in Teams. Okay, so here is my portal, and I have also added the planner here in Teams. And the idea now is, okay, George Clooney now joins the company. So what we need to do, we need to add a new employee. Okay, so now it opens in a new tab because I don't have the Teams client, but normally it should open my new form for the new employee. Should open directly here in Teams, and of course it also opens if I go here. Okay, I haven't integrated it, but normally I could also do it here directly in Teams from the list. Let's do it now here in the tab. Let's say Clooney, George. So this is just a simple Microsoft list or SharePoint list where I will add the information. So now I need to provide here a private email address from George Clooney. I will add here now my email address to see also what happens in the process. Okay, the start date, let's say the start date is today. That sounds good. I need to add a manager because this user will also be added in the Active Directory as a manager of the new employee when the account is created. And also a mentor. Let's say we will add Marine. I can also add a department, which is also added to the Active Directory, and a lot of further information. So let's just save. That's enough for now. And now I can see here the list of the new employees. So now after I have created the new employee, what happens? Let's go in PowerAutomate to take a look. So I have here in PowerAutomate two workflows. The first workflow is create admin task. That's the onboarding management, the workflow for the onboarding management, and that one is the second one. Now let's see what happens here. So as you can see, the workflow should have started. Probably it starts soon. Let's just take a look in the workflow. What happens here? So when a new employee is added, what we've just done, then we set a variable, and at this point, I'm creating a user in the Active Directory. This is the action I've talked before. So you can create user in Active Directory. Of course, you need to have the admin permission to also create users if you want to do this. And yeah, then you can add here the information about the new user. Then I'm also waiting here for the account to be sure that the account is created. And after the account was created, I'm adding this account to a Microsoft 365 group. And in this moment, I can also assign licenses to the user. It also depends on you if you really want to do it in PowerAutomate. You can also do this, of course, in Logic apps, but I just wanted to show you that it's possible. And I'm also running some workflows. To be honest, I'm doing it on some smaller tenants and tenants that are not that are not crucial, let's say. But of course, you can also just trigger some Azure functions from PowerAutomate and write in the Azure function the creation of the user account. Okay, now let's see what else I'm doing. Get all available administrative tasks. Let me show you what I mean. So I have here a task master list, and it's just a simple list in SharePoint, and in this list I'm managing all the tasks. Yeah? Create user account, provide hardware. These tasks are the same for every new employee. Yeah, so these are repeating tasks. And in this way, I have here a master task. And in my workflow, I'm just iterating this list, iterate all tasks. And then after I iterate them, I will create them in Planner. So I will create a new Planner task for the new employee with the master list I've just shown you. Okay, here I'm also creating a new employee entry for the employee onboarding process. This is the second process for the employee. And when I'm just creating this entry to trigger my second workflow. And after that, I'm doing some funny stuff like posting information in Teams about the new tasks for the new employee and sending some email notification to the new employee. Let's take a look here in the general. So as you can see here, there's a new post. Okay, George Clooney joined the company. And I've also opened here my Outlook. And as you can see here, that's the email. Dear George Clooney, welcome. You can now access Microsoft Teams with account information. As you can see here, I've just added a password. Don't do this. You should create a random password if you do it in a PowerAutomate workflow. It's super easy. You just need to create a random number and then attach the random number to a password, and then it's random. So, and of course, the user also needs to change the password at the first sign in. So now I can just log in as George Clooney. Let's see what happens. Let me just browse as a guest here. And let's see here, George Clooney. Let's add the user here and the very creative password. And now, as you can see, I need to change my password. Change it to a new one. Okay. Yeah, it was not really creative, my password. Let's try it again. Okay. Now it should work. Okay, it's very standard. Okay, I will take another one. Let's try it again. Probably now I just had a typo. Let me just create one. And now, here we go. Okay, it seems that it's not working. I will just try it one more time. And then if it's not working, I will do it just with my account. Okay, now it's working. And so now George Clooney logged in to Microsoft Teams. So that's his first login. And he was already added to the new team, employee onboarding. Okay, that takes a little bit. So now you can see here, okay, he's in Microsoft Teams. He was added to this team, employee onboarding. The licenses were also already assigned, as you can see. There is also an automatic post here in the channel, say hello to George Clooney. And if I take a look here in the chat, George Clooney also received a message, welcome on board, dear George Clooney, take a look on your tasks. So it seems that some tasks were assigned to George Clooney. And there is also an onboarding portal for the new employees. So let's take a look here. That's the onboarding portal. It's similar to the administrative portal. And believe me, it's very important to have an onboarding portal because you have some information. So the new employees get they will get a lot of information, because there is a lot of information. And if you provide them a site, a page, a portal where they can find the most important things they need to know in the first weeks, is really very important. So stuff like time tracking, FAQs, or IT service desk. So these are the most important things new employees need. And of course, after that, they will need more and more and more. And here you can see also a list with onboarding tasks. So in the administrative portal, if you remember, I've used a planner to manage tasks. Here I'm using a simple Microsoft 365 list to manage tasks. So it depends on you how you want to manage your tasks. Both options are valid. Yeah. So if you work here with the employee onboarding tasks with planner, if you have one planner for every new employee, maybe there will be too many planners for if a manager has, for example, 10 new employees. And you could also do it, for example, with to-do. You can automatically create to-do tasks, but currently there are not connectors in PowerAutomate to create to-do tasks for other people. You only can create to-do tasks for your own. Okay, so these are the tasks, and of course there is also a tab just with the tasks. And it's also important to provide further information, training, how they can get information about available trainings. Maybe you already have a training portal, and you already have a registration site. So provide them information to the registration site. Okay, so that's the most important things from the employee side. Let me just also switch to the workflow to show you. It's similar to the admin tasks. Here we can also see that the first workflow, the admin tasks, were run, and it also created some actions. And let's just switch to this workflow and let's see what happens here. So it's, like I've said, it's similar to the administrative onboarding. When the account was created, I will get all available tasks also from a task list, to a task master list that is relevant for the new employees. So you have typical tasks for new employees. Provide a signature in Outlook, order some business cards, or visit some special training. So these are typical tasks for the new employees. And then what I'm also doing here in the workflow, I'm initializing a due date depending on the phase. So that's why the phases are important. So if a task needs to happen in the third phase, so the first 2 weeks, then the due date is the starting day plus 2 weeks. And so you can also initialize on a due date depending on when the user needs to do his tasks. Okay, then here I'm also initializing responsible, because sometimes there are tasks for new employees that are relevant for the manager. Some tasks are relevant for the new employee. So here you can also automate the task assignment. Okay, and here there are also different Teams actions. These are the actions with sending an email to the new employee, adding him to the onboarding team, sending him welcome messages. So you have a lot of Teams actions you can use for moderating it. And yes, here also welcome mail. So now maybe you ask, why Teams? Of course, you can also do it in other ways. If you have Yammer in your company, you can also create a Yammer community for the new employees. In my opinion, for the administrative part, a team in Microsoft Teams is definitely the right way to do it, because in the administrative part of the onboarding, you have the IT involved, the HR, and they need to, so it's a closed group and they need to communicate to each other. And for the employees, like you've seen, we also have a team here, a team where also the new employees can ask questions. And of course, you could do this in Teams if you have Teams, but you could also build a community in Yammer and have the channel of the employee onboarding communication in Yammer. So it depends on what you're using. And of course, you also don't need to use Teams. You can just use SharePoint portal, but you just be aware that employees don't have the chance to ask questions. And here they can ask questions and get answers. Okay. So that's the most important thing about the Teams. What else I want to show you is in Active Directory. So as you can see here, this was I've opened the user overview before we have added George Clooney, and now when we refresh, we can see now here that an account was created for George Clooney. So you can see it here. Yeah, so that was the account. Okay, so let's go back to the slides, because I still have a couple of slides. This was a short overview about an idea of the onboarding process. Of course, you can extend this process depending on the way the process is in your company. So you need to adapt it, of course. And you can extend the process by using Azure Automation. You can configure and automate tasks across Azure and also on-premises environments. If you have your Active Directory still on premises, you can do this with Azure Automation and then trigger it. Just trigger the tasks from PowerAutomate. You can use the SharePoint framework for developing solutions and developing web parts. You can integrate them in SharePoint and in Teams, for example, dashboards for the new employees or stuff like this. You can use Power Apps if you have complex list forms, but not only. Of course, you can create an app for the whole onboarding process. And if you go in Power Apps and if you go in the Power Apps portal, there is also an onboarding template. You can take a look on it and also see if you get some ideas, if it fits for you. And of course, you can decide if you want to implement your own Power App for the onboarding process. And of course, you can also connect with data from external platforms. For example, you have data, personal data in SAP about the new employee, and when the new employee signed the contract, you just change the status in SAP, and then you could trigger the workflow and send information from SAP to the workflow to just trigger the workflow automatically. Okay, so this is all about extending the process. And yeah, Microsoft announced a couple of weeks ago Microsoft Viva. And it opened us a lot of opportunities to support the onboarding process. So there is not a specific onboarding element in Viva, but it will support you a lot in the onboarding of new employees. Because with the Viva connections, you will have an aggregation of the most important information that is sometimes missing, and so it's based on KI, so it will show the important information for the new employees. Then you have the Viva Insights, which will also support a kind of mentoring in M365. You have Viva Learning, that is very important because you can provide the videos and the whole learning tools in the Viva Learning platform. And you have the Viva Topics for knowledge management, where you can, of course, have all your knowledge base and just provide the information for your new employees where they can find this information. Okay, so just one more slide with a short recap, and then I think we're already done for today. So first of all, please don't underestimate the onboarding process, because it's a very important process. And as soon as you have it, you will see how important and helpful it is for your company. The onboarding process is just one use case of many use cases of process automation in a company. And so it's just an example, in my opinion, a good example, because it's easy. But you need to think about how you want to build up your own process, because designing good process is much more complex than just setting them up in PowerAutomate. It's more important to take your time and think about how your process will look like. Okay, so that's all for now. I also have some relevant resources in the list of my resources. And by the way, in the SharePoint lookbook, you can also find a SharePoint site template for the onboarding. So for the pre-onboarding, you can take a look on it. Maybe it helps you and gives you inspiration. Yeah, thank you for attending the session. And if you have any questions, you can contact me on the different social media